Can you hear me now? Okay. So we are going to, for the next 8 weeks, going through eight topics out of the 14 chapters of this book. It's basically the Bible A to Z, per se. Okay, so we are encouraging all of the church to, speed read or speed listening. Okay, the 8 books in the Bible. Okay, the kind of important 8 books: Genesis, Revelation, right? Matthew, and this week, I hope some of you have read or listened to Genesis. And if you have any question about how do I listen, either in English or in other language, I think Ellen is the expert here, right? Ellen, thank you for teaching us a few tricks that we can listen through. Especially good for us that our eyes are not super good, right? So next week, remember Exodus. So this week, today we're going to take this bold step and talking about one thing in Genesis, the story of blessings and curses. So starting out, can we go to the next page? What do you think about the Bible? When you think about the Bible, okay, do you think it's God's story? And who's the author? Well, according to the Bible, the author is God himself. You heard a lot of people talking about God, right? But you know what? All these authors are observants. They were not speaking in first person tone, right? I saw created heaven and earth, right? But not the Bible. Bible says, I created heaven and earth. I am who I am. Exodus, Moses talked to, God says to Moses, I am who I am. I don't have a name because I'm the beginning, right? You all are given a name. Nobody gave me a name because I was there in the beginning. And it is me. It is I. I send you, right? So the Bible is God's story told by God himself. Okay, so this is very important for us to know, right? So the other thing is important is that God's story is about God, but more importantly, God's story is about you and I. Okay, it's you and I. Why God wrote a story? Well, he doesn't need an autobiography for us to really understand who he is, right? He wants you and I to know who he is so that we can know who we are. Okay? And that's important. And that can be only revealed, not studied, not with 200 years of scientific observation and say, how things come to this. And in Genesis, we actually understand that the world come together by God's creation. And sometimes, we're in Silicon Valley, right? Everything is rational, everything is scientific. And if you're scientists, if you are engineers, you probably would agree with me more is that all these doesn't happen by itself, right? All these things that around us doesn't happen by itself. You just cannot, that the wind blow and blow up to a mansion, right? It doesn't happen. Even though you know the process, you don't know who is the engineer behind it, right? So it's important for us to know that this book is God revealed to us who he is. It matters to you and I, okay? And now, for all of you, if I ask you, if you read a story, well, how do you read it? Do you always get the plot line of that story? What is the plot line of the Bible? It's actually a big question, right? What is the plot line of the Bible, right? Is that a God want to tell us who he is? Partly, right? But if you read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, you probably would say the plot line of God's story is it's about the return and the restoration of God's people. Okay? I tried to use this to summarize it. I don't think D.A. Carson specific said that, but seems like he would agree with me. There's a plot line of this Bible. From Genesis to the Gospels to the Revelation, that God is making his people return and get his people restored. Okay, so we started out from God created the world. So next slide says that in Genesis chapter 1, the very first chapter 1, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image God has created them. Male and females, he created them. Verse 28, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. It started out with a creation, Bible says. Okay. Now this creation has a purpose. This creation has a purpose. What is the purpose of God's creation? Is it one of his pet projects? Right? Throw it out and see how it goes, right? Is human being is his pet project as well? Let me, try to run this and it doesn't work and let me hop on another project. That is not what the Bible tells us, right? The whole thing actually, as we understood, the whole thing was created for human beings. It was created for human beings. So, verse 20 says that, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. There's a lot of things need to happen for these blessings to work, right? You need to have creatures to be subdued, right? You need to, in order to have these creatures, then you need to feed those creatures, right? You need to have these plantations to grow before that. If you check the everyday's progress of God's creation, it's actually laid out nicely. May not be totally encyclopedia accuracy, but it is like the hint is right. It's telling us God made these things for what? For the male and females he created in his image. So the first thing we understand is that God created human beings to bless them, to bless you and I. Okay? The blessing is the first thing that we need to know about the Bible, is that God created us to bless us. God created us to love us. And we wonder why, right? And God, we can talk about, we'll talk about it later. But the first thing we understand, it started out with God's mindful creation, not only, arbitrary creation, a very mindful creation, and his intention to bless mankind. Now, next slide. But the blessing, after, God created everything good, then chapter 2, he created job for Adam, right? Chapter 2, he also created marriage, right? The sexes and marriage is actually, wonderful things that we human beings cannot imagine, right? But chapter 3, something happened. This is a thing called man's doubts and disobedience happened, right? And the man said, the man actually took the apple, took the fruit, forbidden fruit that God says that, obey me, okay? Everything you can eat, but not this. And the serpent tempted Eve somehow persuaded Adam, and he took it, and God says, why are you hiding? And the man said, the woman you put there with me, she gave it to me, right? And then the Lord asked the woman, and she said, the serpent deceived me and I ate. So something dramatic happened when this event took place. This event means that the original creation of God, the order of God's creation, is all of a sudden disrupted. Okay? It's disrupted in the sense that God created, heaven and earth, everything, in the air, in the water, on the land, everything for human beings to have a way that humans' life can be blessed. Okay? And all of a sudden, humans said, no, I don't want that. I don't trust you enough. I don't think you are good enough to give me every good things. I want to be my own boss. I want to take care of myself. I want to define my own destiny. I want to find my own purpose of meaning, right? Actually, human being doesn't know what they're talking about. But one thing they did do is that the order has been destroyed. The creation, the original creation, the order has been destroyed. And the blessing cannot be carried out as God first designed. Next chapter, next slides. And here comes curses. I don't know about you. I actually trying to, find out there's more sermon about curses I can find. I couldn't find too many, honestly. So you have to bear with me, okay? This is like, I'm talking about curses, my understanding about the Bible, okay? And your job is to verify yourself, okay? Curses. Why a good God will curse? Right? This is kind of counterintuitive, right? We all say God is so good, right? Well, let's dive into a little bit. Verse 16, God said to the woman, after God curses the serpent, he said to the woman, I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor, you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. I mean, sometimes we read this, we want to skip it, right? This is hard to understand, right? All these harsh words, right? But you know what? Sometimes we get a little bit. Why would God curse the land, the childbirth, the pain, and later on, the labor of man? Because what? Because the disobedience created the chaos of this order, and everything needs to have a makeover. A transformation is really needed in these circumstances, or the blessings have a chance to be restored. Okay? I mean, if you can imagine that nothing happens, right? Something bad happens, but no consequences happened. What would happen? What would happen? Well, it gets worse. It gets worse. Okay? And it leaves no room for redemption and restoration. And this is what the curse is about. Okay? Curses were necessary for us to be rebuilt in God's grand scheme of plans. But you know what? Inside these curses, we can still peek the goal of this light of his curses. We can see that first, the blessing of marriage is sustained, right? I mean, God says that you are going to desire your husband and he will be rule over you. It's actually talking about the power struggles in the marriage. Okay? It is saying that woman wants to have a bigger control of her man. Okay? But man is stronger, so man overpower woman. And that has actually become the history of mankind for longest time, right? Right? But the marriage by itself was kept. Right? There is still a chance that relationship can be restored. Procreation was sustained. right? God says that, fill the land, fill the earth, that blessing still intact, except it's painful, right? And everything that God has blessed through woman, is still intact. And next verse 17, talk about God's curse to man, to Adam. He said, cursed is the ground. Cursed is the ground because of you. Talking about you need to work so you can eat. Okay? You need to work and you can eat. I mean, usually the land only grow good crops. Now there's thistles and thorns are all come out, right? And you need to work harder and you need to eat them. Okay? And God's in Genesis 2 give a very good job. What is the job that God gave Adam in Genesis 2? If you have the title, the title is co-owner. Okay? When did you interview a company? They say, "Oh, you are so good. Let me give you the job of co-owner." You don't get co-owner job title, right? You get CEO maybe, but you don't get co-owner. And what is the difference of working as a co-owner versus working as a hireman? That is the difference of this is lost. When God gave Adam to work in the garden, to participate in his creation, he was a co-owner of God's creation. Okay? And now, when the curse comes, the consequences is that he no longer can be co-owner. The relationship has been broken, right? And he is now a hireman. Hireman do what? TGIF. That's hireman, right? You don't want to work until you don't have to. I mean, if you don't have to work, you get out because all you need is that paycheck, right? You don't own this thing. You lost the joy of ownership, okay? And that's why we, every first week of the Sunday we say, we are so grateful to Jesus Christ. Because of him, we are co-heir with him, right? Because we were born to be co-owners. Now we need to restore that relationship. So you can see that the the plot line is straight, right? He wants to restore us to where we were. Okay, so God condemned him. Say, this is the consequence. This is the reality, actually. Okay, and this is the necessary step for you to be redeemed and restored and transformed. And then also, physical death came to this world. You will die physically. Even though you die spiritually, when you cut loose the relationship with God and you want to be God yourself, but also now the physical death came. Okay? And these are the statements of consequences. Okay, so, but we know that everything is still at the hands of a loving Creator who has this plot line that's going to eventually bless us, eventually call us to return, eventually restore us of all his blessings. All right. So that's about the most important first 3 chapters of Genesis. Okay. Later on, we find out there's a lot of story coming through, but we want to pick a few things in Deuteronomy. Next slides. Deuteronomy 30, when Moses is leading his people to the land of milk and honey, and he said, this is important. God said through me, when all these blessings and curses I have set before you, God, through Moses, set blessings and curses to his people and say, this is the consequences of you're breaking my words. And you will see that it is a curse. It will be curses. But you first have to understand was a blessing. Okay? Was a blessing. When you obey my word, it was supposed to be a blessing. But when you disobey, it became a curse. It is the one that will convict you, right? But then we find out that it's important for us to understand God's blessings and curses. Not all curses are bad. Actually, curses of God, it is means to achieve blessings, right? When you go through life, when you go through your hard times in life, it may not necessarily a bad thing. If it get you closer to the ultimate blessings, then it is a good thing. Okay? And God actually used the blessings to his disposal so that he can accomplish his will. His will is to, we'll find out. Next slides. We'll find out it's in the circumcision of the hearts. So God actually blesses a lot in the history of Old Testament, right? Before Jesus, Noah was blessed, right? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob were blessed, right? King David was blessed. And Israelites were blessed. But they were also cursed, right? Exile, right? The enemies. The fall of the temple, the destruction of Jerusalem. These are all come together. But even though, the Israelites know how the consequences were, they were still not able to truly obey God. Until verse 6, the Lord your God will circumcise your hearts and the hearts of your descendants, so that you may love him with all your heart and with all your soul and live. Sometimes you read the Bible, there is a plot line, but there's a motive, right? There's a motive of God doing all these. Why would God go through this trouble? Set up everything on the universe, create human being, and knowingly, if we give human being free will, big chances, actually 100%, they will betray God. Why would he go through this trouble? If he is a narcissistic God, why would he be so dumb to create you and I, that we at our times rebel against him, put him down, discredit what he does? Why? Well, because he yearned for you and I would love him with all our hearts. That's it. There's only one chance you and I can love God with all our hearts. Right? It's not bought. It's not for our benefit. It is for who he is that we actually know. How would you love a person? Oh, he's handsome. Oh, she's beautiful. Oh, he's rich. Oh, she's, kind of the character I want. He's sweet. She's sweet. When we say that, those things can disappear and our love will be lost. When we love, is from our angle, for our sake, we will not love that person with all our hearts. And this is what God says that, even I give you blessings, even I give you curses, even I lead you to follow me but only one way that you can truly love me, and which is the only thing I want in all this endeavor, all the risk I took, is that you love me on your own. You know me and you love who I am. You love my breath. which goes in moments. But you love my everlasting love. You love my compassion. You love my justice, which can judge you. Okay? You love my blessings, but you also willing to embrace curses. If you truly love this God this much, then this is what I want. And it can only be done by a circumcision of your heart. Not, the circumcisions we talk about, right? On your body. It is inside your heart. The only circumcise that can lead you and I to love God with all our heart, all our mind, all our might, can be only accomplished by God. Okay, we need a surgery. We need a surgery to change our heart, to transform our heart, to shape our heart, to love Him wholesomely. Okay? And God, in this story in the Bible, from Genesis to, we are not finished yet in Revelation, it is for this. Okay? And a greater love has to cut into our stone heart to make us love Him more. Love Him the way He is. Okay? And it can only be displayed on the cross. Last slides. Galatians 3:13. Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. For it was written, cursed is everyone who is hung on a pole. On this cross, Jesus became our curse. Our curse was paid for by Him. God Himself, God's own Son. And if we understand this, we can get a glimpse of how deep of the love of God is. How wise that He has from the creation of this universe up to this day. And how we are going to continue His triumph at the end of this life before new heaven and new earth will come. And all this is displayed on the cross. In the history of the Bible, there are places that God said, I regret I make human beings. When was that? That is when human being, went through the same behavior as animals, which is the one that the strong take advantage of the weak. And God says that this is not human being. This is not my image. Okay? You may have a conscience, but your conscience is being blinded. My image is the Almighty died on the cross for you. In humiliation, in helplessness, in everything that I give up, but, the most powerful God died on the cross for you. It became the curse, taking over the consequences of your disobedience. And now you and I can believe in that and restore the relationship. Maybe not everything is restored. Okay? When Jesus comes again, everything will be restored. New heaven and new earth will replace the old heaven and the old earth. Okay? The first law of physics will be replaced by first laws of superphysics. Okay? We will be not recognizing this new heaven and new earth. But for us together, Jesus has to be our curse, and we have to believe in Him and wait for His coming. Okay? And in John 3:15, John 3:16 says what? That God so loved the world that whoever believed in, He sent His Son to die for the world, and whoever believes in Him will not perish but have everlasting life. But what does John 3:15 says? John 15 says that just as the bronze snake on the pole being lifted up, Jesus is lifted up, so whoever believes in Him will be saved. What does that mean? What does that mean? Remember that Jesus in Genesis 3 curses snake. He cursed Adam and Eve, but he also cursed the snake. But he didn't talk to the snake. He didn't want to restore. He wanted to actually, at the end of the day, devil is destroyed, right? He doesn't talk to the snake. He doesn't rebuild. He doesn't ask them, ask the snake, what's going on? He asks Adam, what's going on? Ask Eve, what's going on, right? He wants to restore. But this bronze snake represents the curse. So Jesus says that as the snake being lifted up on the pole, this bronze snake, and God says, look at it. Look at it. Look at this snake. Look at these curses. In other words, look at the failure of you and I. And we will be saved. We will not be saved by our success. We will only be saved by our failure being redeemed. And that's why we need to look at Jesus. Jesus, the curse on the pole, being lifted up. So you and I, whoever look into that, our relationship with God will be restored. We acknowledge that he become our curse on the cross. Our curse is paid for by him. Right? I almost finished the whole entire Bible, but there are still a lot of things to talk about. So be sure to read Exodus next week. Okay? And we will come to talk about God's laws and what does that mean in Jesus. But I hope that you and I, we will fall in love with God. Okay? But before that, let's spend more effort to read the Bible because it has recorded all the revelation of who God is in his own mouth to you and I. And they're so precious. There's a lot of things can take your priority, but you know what? In your lifetime, this is the most important things to you and I. Let us pray.